Hey guys, just wanted to do a video. It's been a while, but something came up that's kind of on my mind, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit. The other day I was driving home from getting dog food, and there was a house fire. And I stopped and I looked at it. The fire department was already there working on it and stuff, but I pulled over and was looking, and I'll insert a picture and maybe a little bit of video clip here. So yeah, that was like, when you see something like that, there's, at least personally, there's like a chain of thought that you have. My first thought is, oh my God, I hope every person is okay. I hope that if anyone was in that home, that they got out and they're fine. My second thing that I always think about is pets. Like, I hope that they didn't have pets, or I hope their pets were with them, or at a daycare, or in an outside kennel, or something like that. I hope that the pets got out of there, if there was any. And then obviously, the third thing is, I can't believe these people just lost their entire life. All those things are devastating, but obviously life comes before possessions. But I mean, it's just absolutely devastating to see. It's horrible for the family. Can't even imagine. I waited a couple days to make this video since I saw the fire, because I didn't know the extent of it, and as it turns out, there was some pets that died in the fire. 4 cats and 4 snakes. So I mean, that's devastating. Luckily, all the people weren't home. The family wasn't home. So none of them were hurt. But anyways, that leads me into my kind of what I want to talk about a little bit is what pets and house fires. So there's a couple things that I think are important to keep in mind, and I think everybody you should, in your mind, you should run through scenarios of emergency. You should always do that. You should sit in your home and think, okay, my furnace is over there. If that catches fire, this is my nearest exit. Where are my children? Even if you're single, you can think of these things, but just break it down. Where are my kids? Where are my animals? Where's the closest exits? How would I get to my car? What am I wearing? What time of year is it? All these things matter. It gets to be negative 20, 30 degrees here, and if your house catches on fire, a wood stove fire, and you're sleeping naked, or even in a t-shirt and just regular sweatpants, and you run and you live out in the middle of nowhere, and you jump out your window or run out your door because your house is on fire, and then your car is locked because you locked your car, and you're standing out there, and your phone was left by your bedside because you rushed out in a fire, and you're standing there. I guess you have to walk to a neighbor's. How close is that? It's negative 20 degrees outside. You're barefoot, right? So these are all things that are important to think about. Maybe have a kit in your car. Maybe leave a key to your car somewhere hidden outside where you can get into your car. Maybe don't lock your car at night if you live in an area where you're really secluded and alone. Maybe it's worth the risk that you can be able to get in your car, regardless of something like that happening. But anyways, more to focus on animals. I'm just saying, you want to run through these scenarios. So what happens is, and I have personally had family members who had dogs die in a fire in their house, and they themselves almost died. And it's because, long story short, the main entrance was blocked by fire, and the back door was the only way out, but they hadn't shoveled it. And it opened, the storm door opened out. So they couldn't get out of the house. And they just kept busting it until they finally busted down the storm door and could all crawl out onto the snowbank. where the snow had been coming off the roof and piled up, and it had, barely got out, and the animals were kenneled, and they died. And that's obviously devastating. So it leads me into a thought process about what to do in that situation. Obviously, I'm more dog oriented. I focus more on dogs, but I also personally have cats, and I believe all life is very important. All life is sacred. So, with that said, the biggest thing I know about dealing with cats is obviously most cats are indoor cats. And if you're not home, there's really nothing you can do. There's really nothing you can do unless your cat's outside. If it's inside, there's really nothing you can do. But if you're home, the number one thing to do, I guess, would be leave the doors open. They're under the smoke level. Hopefully they can find their way out. They always say to keep some pillowcases handy, where if you have the time, you can grab your cats, you throw them in the pillowcase, tie it shut, and just bring them outside with you. Obviously, no human life is worth an animal life. If it's between you and your animal, get yourself out of your home, leave the door open, hope the animal comes with you. But if you do have the time, I've heard that that's a successful way to keep your cats contained. You just grab them, pillowcase them, tie it shut, go outside with them, get away from the home. If you're home and you have time to get your dogs and get them outside, that's good. There's a lot to it, because some people's dogs run away, some people's dogs don't stick around, some people's dogs need to be on leashes, some people's dogs are kenneled at night, some people's dogs are kenneled during the day, right? All these scenarios can lead to something in a moment of franticness, in a moment of urgency, can lead to devastating outcomes. So you should run through those scenarios in your head. Okay, I always have his leash by the door, and he always is in this area, or he's kenneled in this area, or he sleeps with us in bed, and when we leave, maybe it's a really well-behaved dog and we can just run out of the house with him, or toss him out of a window and I can follow him and he sticks around. Maybe it's a dog that runs away and you toss him out the window and then he just runs off, and of course, even a well-behaved dog in a situation of franticness like this, there's no guarantee of what that animal's going to do. Obviously it's a horrifying thing and it's a very traumatic thing. It's one of the reasons why even my inside dogs live outside when I'm not home. Because if my wife is at work, my kids are at daycare, and I'm at work, and my house burns down, none of my dogs are going to be dead. My cats will be dead because they're inside, but none of my dogs will be dead. I don't have them inside. I don't have them. A dog would rather be outside in a 20 by 20 kennel than inside in a small kennel anyways. So, that's always something to keep in mind. Maybe it's worthwhile to invest $1,000 in a good kennel for outside with a good dog house, depending on the time of year, depending on the type of dog, depending on the circumstances. All these things have to be weighed and put into account. But when you go to work, instead of kenneling your dog inside, if you have the property, try to kennel your dog outside. Get dig safeguards, get climbing proof guards, so that you can be at ease of things of that nature. Maybe even lock it so nobody can harass your dog. Get a padlock on it, and the dog can run around all day, can eat all day, can shit and piss all day, and it can enjoy itself in the sun and go into shaded areas, and if it has a buddy in there, and it doesn't have to be confined to the house or confined to a little kennel, where if an emergency happens and you're not there, there's really nothing you can do, and your animal is going to die. But yeah, I just wanted to bring awareness to the whole idea of it, because it's something it's one of those it's not going to happen to me situations, but it happens to some people, and you never know what's going to happen. You could have an electric problem, you could have a furnace problem, a wood stove problem, and you're sleeping soundly at night, and you're trying to think of yourself, you're trying to think of your wife, you're trying to think of your kids, and then you're trying to think of your animals, and before you know it, your house is totally engulfed in flames, and you didn't have time to run that all through your head and get everything handled. So you want to have an order of action. For example, I live in a mobile home, so it's something I think of actually very often, because I live on the separate end of the house of my children. So my room is 80 feet away from my kids' room. So what is my course of action if my house is on fire? to get to my children and get them out of the house. That's my number one concern. Dog wise, luckily here, I'm not even concerned about running away or anything. It's just so much middle of nowhere. Even if they run away, they're going to come back later. So the dogs that are inside, I can just bust out a door. I can toss them out a window. I don't care. Run off, you're good. Obviously, that's more a concern for like city living. If you live somewhere in a city in an apartment building and you toss your dog outside and it goes running off, and who knows what could happen to it. In the country, it's a little more lenient. But, and then I got to think about how I'm going to get to my kids. Mobile homes go up quickly. How is it most efficient for me if my house is on fire? How do I get to my kids? I need to leave my home and come around my home into their window and get them out of their room that way. Like, that's the most efficient way for me to get my kids out of their room if I can't access them through their hallway because of a fire. That's something you have to think about, because you don't want to be standing there looking down a burning hallway to your kids' room wondering how you're going to get there. And it's not a complex thing. It's just something to save you even seconds in the future when you're dealing with something like that, and you're dealing with human life and animal life. And obviously, all those things are very sacred. We want to do all we can to save those things. Never risk your own life for an animal. Always risk your own life for your kids. But just things to keep in mind. Mitigate ways that tragedy can happen. So I guess that's really all I have to talk about. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take some time today, whenever you see this video, to sit with your own thoughts, or your spouse, and maybe even your children, and talk about emergency escape plans, emergency routes, what to do in a case of emergencies, who to call in case of emergencies. Become friends with a neighbor so that if something happens, your kids, something happens, they can walk to that person's house, and those people are acquainted with your children, and you have a trust there. All these things you should take into account. Get your neighbors acquainted with your animals, acquainted with your dogs, so that when they see them running amok, they give you a call, say, hey, why is so-and-so running about? Maybe an emergency happened. Maybe they can help with something. Maybe just go, oh, I can't believe that Apollo got out. Can you snag him for me? I'll be right over to grab him before anything crazy happens. So just all things to keep in mind. It's all about community. Yeah, that's basically all I got to say. Have a good day, guys.